maybe I'll be coming to
Yes.
Africa also.
Yes, I know. Yes, I know. You just come from Ghana. Yes, you blew me away. Thank you very much. Exceptions.
Right. Ahmed, start.
Yes, sir. Could I put water?
Thank you.
Oh, yes, indeed, indeed. So much of what we need. So much better.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are just about to start the Africa Peace Symposium 2018, and I call upon our brother Sheikh Ali Mwanda to do the Arabic recitation of the Holy Quran, and Mr. Ahmed Benyewu to do the English translation. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا وكنتم على شفا حفرة من النار فأنقذكم منها كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون. صدق الله العظيم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The portion of the Holy Quran just recited from chapter 3, verses 103 to 105. I seek refuge with Allah from Satan the accursed. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. O you who believe, fear Allah as he should be feared, and let not death overtake you except when you are in a state of submission. And hold fast altogether to the rope of Allah, and be not divided, and remember the favor of Allah, which he bestowed upon you when you were enemies, and he united your hearts in love, so that by his grace you became as brothers, and you were on the brink of a pit of fire, and he saved you from it. Thus does Allah explain to you his commandments, that you may be guided. And let there always be among you a body of men who should invite to goodness, and enjoin virtue, and forbid evil, and it is they who shall prosper.
Thank you. We now have a brief introduction of the dignitaries on the stage. Just before I do that, just want to acknowledge that everyone here is a dignitary. So just for the sake of the fact that we cannot acknowledge everyone here, we want to just do for that of the stage. So bear with us. Thank you very much. Not in any particular order. Mrs. June Douglas, CEO for Pamela Douglas Foundation Worldwide. If you can just show your hand. Thank you. Dr. Boma Douglas, Chairman, Central Association of Nigerians in United Kingdom, Kanuk. Magistrate Bilkis Savage. Nigel Stewart, Founder, Center of Pan-African Thought. Charlie Hendoff, Policy Officer at the Association of Commonwealth. His Excellency Julius Moto, High Commissioner, Republic of Uganda. Thank you. Mr. Karim Khan, QC, Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations. Mr. Rafiq Hayat, National President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community, United Kingdom. Mr. Tommy Callon, President, Pan-African Ahmadiyya Muslim Association, United Kingdom. Dr. Keifala Mara, former Minister of Finance and Governor, Bank of Sierra Leone. Imam Ataul Mujib Rashid, Imam of the London Mosque, and in the missionary in charge of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community, United Kingdom. Her Royal Highness Na Chocho Soya I, Queen of the Greater Accra region of Ghana. His Excellency Sir Dr. Iftikhar Ayas, KBOB Honorary Consul of Tuvalu. His Worshipful Councillor Te Tayalan, Mayor of Kingston. Mr. Ibrahim Iklab, Director of Outreach, Ahmadiyya Muslim, United Kingdom. Her Royal Highness Hajia Hajara Shado, Ghana Union Treasury and Chairperson of the Federation of Muslim Women Association of United Kingdom, Ghana. Martin Whitman. Okay. Apologies for that. Martin, is Martin here? If Martin is here, Martin can join us on the stage, please. Okay. Thank you. We have Lord Tariq Ahmed Biti, Secretary of State at the Commonwealth Office, who just joined us. Mr. Issa Wema, who is also the former President of Pan-African Ahmadiyya Muslim Association. That concludes the introduction of the dignitaries. We now move on to the welcome address by Mr. Tommy Callum, President of the Pan-African Ahmadiyya Muslim Association of United Kingdom. Mr. Tommy Callum.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, ever merciful. Most respected National President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community UK, Your Excellencies, Your Royal Highnesses, Your Worshipful Mayor of Kingston, Lords and Ladies, revered elders, my dearest brothers and sisters of the Pan-African Ahmadiyya Muslim Association, distinguished guests, ladies, gentlemen, and viewers on live stream, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace, mercy, and blessings of God be with you all. I am humbled and most grateful to welcome you all to the Africa Peace Symposium 2018, hosted by the Pan-African Ahmadiyya Muslim Association, PAAMA UK, under the auspices of His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, the Khalifa and worldwide head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. May Allah be his helper. His Holiness is an irrepressible advocate for world peace, who, even as we convene here today, is on a tour of the USA and Guatemala to spread the peaceful message of Islam and invite mankind onto the paths leading to lasting global peace and prosperity for all. As some of you may know, PAAMA is a subsidiary association within the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Since its establishment, PAAMA has, over the years, organized various events aimed at promoting and disseminating the true and pristine message of Islam as taught by the holy founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, India, who we believe to be the awaited Imam Mahdi and promised Messiah of the latter days. One such event is this annual Peace Symposium, inaugurated last year. The main aim of this symposium is to create an avenue to engage and dialogue on issues that enhance the values of peace, justice, and universal brotherhood. In last year's event, we were honored, as we are indeed today, by the presence of the National President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Mr. Rafiq Ahmed Hayat, who delivered a graceful message from the worldwide head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. His Holiness, an integral part of that message was, and I quote, "All people should play their respective roles in helping light the torch for a bright and progressful future for the African continent. Alongside economic development of your countries, it is essential that you maintain a spirit of peace and brotherhood within your nations and with your African neighbors. And in this way, Africa can set a glorious example of peace for the rest of the world to follow." This short but strong statement entails a very powerful message from His Holiness for Africans to strive for and maintain peace and brotherhood as the bedrock of our path to development and progress. As the ultimate head and spiritual guide to every step that PAAMA takes, these words of His Holiness are the inspiration of today's theme, peace and brotherhood, keys to a progressive future. The misfortunes of Africa, induced by external factors, including the lingering effects of the slave trade, the legacies of colonialism and imperialism, unfair world trade pricing policies, and a pernicious international economic system are well documented. It cannot be disputed, however, that internal factors have also played a significant role. Civil wars, internecine strife, political tyranny, military vandalism, religious extremism, tribalism and nepotism, exploitation and oppression of the majority, and the denial of civil liberties have continued to plague Africa, are internal wounds self-inflicted by we Africans ourselves. However, there is hope. Hope not just to elevate Africa from its troubles, but for it to serve as a beacon of light for the rest of the world. There is hope for an Africa that is not characterized by such misfortunes, but one that is unified by its common heritage, reinforced by the spirit of peace and brotherhood among its people and between its nations. We, the members of PAAMA, driven by the motto of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, love for all, hatred for none, strive to inculcate the spirit of true brotherhood in our fellow Africans, for it is our firm belief that it is the realization of universal brotherhood by virtue of us all, irrespective of race, ethnicity, tribe, culture, class, status, ideology, or faith, being equally creatures of the same benevolent God, and that we must, for the sake of winning His pleasure, love not only our fellow human beings, but in fact the entire creation of God, that can inspire a righteous, peaceful, and harmonious society, which are fundamental and indispensable to the material, moral, and spiritual progress and development of Africa, and indeed the world at large. In a world rent asunder by strife, conflict, and warfare, a world beset with bigotry, prejudice, and intolerance, a world tainted by hatred, extremism, and radicalization, events like this, where we have open dialogues on peace and brotherhood, even though at a small scale, will go a long way towards enhancing efforts to achieve freedom, justice, and equality for all, and foster human welfare, goodwill, and a better future for all. I hope and pray, therefore, that this event today will inspire us all to continue our efforts, individually and collectively, towards achieving peace and brotherhood. Indeed, these must become compulsive if chaos, confusion, and commotion are to be avoided, and progress, prosperity, and propriety in all spheres of life are to be promoted. In the end, I take the opportunity to record our profound gratitude and appreciation to each and every one of our guests, distinguished in our esteem, for taking the time out to grace this event with your presence. I am particularly grateful to my dear brother, Karim Khan, our keynote speaker tonight, who has traveled all the way from New York to address us. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Pan-African Ahmadiyya Muslim Association UK, I once again welcome you all and pray you all have a fruitful and enlightening event. Thanks for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Mr. Tommy Callum. We now move on to a video presentation, but before I do that, I missed one of, in fact, two important personalities. Dr. Labelle, MBE, Deputy Lieutenant JP, who's Executive Director of Chrysalis Family Center of Manchester, and Maulana Abdul Ghaffar Ahmed, who is Ahmadiyya Muslim missionary in Midlands. We now move on to a video presentation that will be showing an introduction to the Ahmadiyya Muslim community and then some of the activities of His Holiness, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmed, the Khalifa of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Khush Hamdeed, Ahlan wa Sahlan, Bon Arrivé, you are welcome.
Nowadays, when the world again getting divided into blocks, extremism is escalating and the financial and economic situation is worsening. There's an urgent need to end all kinds of hatred and to lay the foundations of peace. This can only be done by respecting all kinds of sentiments of each other. If this is not done properly, honestly, and with virtue, it will escalate into uncontrollable circumstances.
You understand at a profound level that promoting religious freedom is an essential building block for peace and stability here and throughout the world. In this, we are allied with His Holiness, a courageous champion of religious freedom and of peace.
Allah ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika
Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad is the present head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, the most dynamic international community within Islam. The community was established by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad in Qadian, a small and remote village in India. He claimed to be the expected reformer of the latter days, the one awaited by all major world religions. Founded in 1889, the community has continued to spread throughout the world, flourishing under caliphate, the system of spiritual leadership established after the demise of the Holy Founder. The current successor of this movement, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, continues the work of the Holy Founder to revive the spiritual and moral state of mankind. The movement embodies the benevolent message of Islam in its pristine purity, a movement that preaches peace, universal brotherhood, and submission to the will of God.
The promised Messiah was sent to propagate the real and true teachings of Islam and the Holy Quran. He was sent to establish a bond between man and God Almighty. He was sent to identify and recognize the rights owed by man to one another. He was sent to end all forms of religious warfare. He was sent to establish the respect, dignity, and honor of every founder and every prophet of any religion. He was sent to draw attention towards attaining the highest standards of moral values. And he was sent to establish peace, love, compassion, and brotherhood throughout the world.
वो शख्स नहीं, वो मेरा दिल है.
His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, the present head of the community, continues in his effort to unite people from all faiths and cultures by promoting interfaith dialogue and religious freedom. He has traveled extensively to spread the message of peace and to remind everyone to respect the rights of other human beings. During these tours, His Holiness has met world leaders from the Far East to Europe, from North America to Africa, discussing the economic, social, and political problems facing the world today and how to create peace and justice in the world. He has also met religious and community leaders in order to share common values and core ideals universal to all religions and cultures, with a view to improving the moral state of mankind and creating an atmosphere of love and affection. From young to old, he compassionately listens to the ordinary man, regardless of race, color, or religion. He has personally initiated social projects and schemes to alleviate poverty and human suffering. His concern is not just about the well-being and moral state of the members of the Ahmadiyya community, but of the great human suffering of mankind at large. The Ahmadiyya community knows only that Islam, which is the Islam of love and affection, offers a real message of peace and security.
I respect his strong commitment to promoting peace and understanding. At a time when extremists are seeking to divide us, His Holiness has delivered an inspiring and peaceful message of love overcoming hatred.
Though of humble beginnings, your leadership has made you a figure of global prominence. You started as a teacher, and you have become a guide for millions of Muslims worldwide. You have been persecuted for your beliefs, jailed for your faith, and exiled from your homeland but you refuse to turn to bitterness or vengeance. And that is a very important lesson.
So again, what a pleasure it is to welcome you, Your Holiness, to Ottawa, an opportunity to discuss the many challenges facing the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, but also the opportunities that we have to work together on shared goals and challenges.
When I was here, I did not think of abandoning this country. I considered myself to be a Ghanaian.
Together, we should fight common enemies such as illiteracy, disease, hunger, and poverty. The Ahmadiyya mission has put structures in place towards the fight against these common enemies in order to enhance the dignity of man.
The Ahmadiyya mission is one religious organization in Ghana which has demonstrated ample tolerance in terms of its preparedness to cooperate with all other religious bodies, Muslim and Christian alike.
An injunction to love all and to hate none is the avowed guiding principle of the Ahmadi life.
The Ahmadiyya community, the mission in Sierra Leone, really they've made a pivotal contribution to the education in our country. You just have to look around wherever you are.
What would the world have been without Ahmadiyya movement? As far as Islam is concerned, it would have left a big gap, a vacuum incalculable for us to even suggest as to the type of impact it would mean on society.
Thank you. Thank you for watching, and we thank the MTA Africa team, Ghana Studios, for producing this particular video for us. As we can see, our beloved Imam, His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmed Khalifatul Masih V, is very busy around the world, but yet, despite all this, he managed to send us a special message, and this, I call on the President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community, United Kingdom, Mr. Rafiq Hayat, to read this message for us. Thank you.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Your Excellencies, Your Royal Highnesses, respected and revered guests, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. As Ahmed has indicated, as His Holiness currently is abroad, he's on a trip to the Americas, where he went to Guatemala last week and inaugurated a hospital for Humanity First, one of the charities that works on behalf of the community. And currently he's in Houston, and he sent his message from Houston, and I will read this message. Distinguished guest, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May peace and blessings of Allah be upon you. I'm very pleased to learn that the Pan-African Ahmadiyya Muslim Association UK is holding its annual Peace Symposium for the second time. I pray that Allah the Almighty blesses this event in all respects, and I hope that all the participants recognize the establishing peace in the world is the single greatest challenge facing mankind today. In recent times, we have seen tension between different groups and communities within nations, rising and increasing division within society. This has led to conflicts and wars in some countries, whilst the far right has resurfaced and its dangerous resurgence shows no signs of abating. Similarly, at international level, hostilities are intensifying and threatening to boil over at any time. Several countries have acquired nuclear weapons that have the potential to wipe away nations at the push of a button. If, God forbid, such arsenal are ever put to use, the catastrophe effects will last for generations and will result in children being born with mental and physical disabilities for many decades to come. Moreover, the collateral damage that is seen in war-torn countries is causing death and misery beyond comprehension, and it is grave strain on humanity. The infrastructure in those nations such as Yemen, where airstrikes and heavy bombardment have occurred, has been destroyed. Hence, where people are dying directly from bombing attacks and warfare, millions of others, including babies and young children, women and elders, are dying from famine, malnourishment, and disease. In light of this perilous state of the world, it is the urgent need of the time that people and nations set aside their vested interests and focus with all their energies upon establishing peace through justice, compassion, and mutual respect. A spirit of selflessness and genuine desire to alleviate the suffering of others must overcome the selfish greed that has taken root in so much of the world. Now it is the time to put aside our differences and for all the people, whether religious or not, whether rich or poor, to come together and recognize the fact that we are all part of the same human race and united as such. The African continent and its people, whether they live in Africa or have moved abroad, have a great role to play in establishing peace in this world. Thus, never underestimate yourselves or the potential of the African people. God Almighty has given African people many qualities and capabilities, and so it is your duty to work hard and fulfill your vast potential. For this, you must always act with justice and serve your nations with integrity and work towards their continued development and advancement. Recently, I sent a message to a similar event in Ghana where I said that I hoped the African people were their leaders in forming alliances of peace. I hereby reiterate this message, and I hope and pray that African people, wherever in the world they are, set a positive example for the rest of the world by establishing the highest standards of morality and justice. May the African people be the leaders in the developing, and may the African people be the leaders in developing true peace in the world. At the end, I pray for the success of this Peace Symposium and extend my best wishes to all the participants. Wassalam, yours sincerely, Mirza Masroor Ahmad, Khalifatul Masih, the head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. This is the message that we received. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We thank our beloved and His Holiness, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, for sending such a wonderful message for us. We now move on to a short video presentation on the services to Africa by PAAMA in collaboration with Humanity First and IAAE.
The Pan-African Ahmadiyya Muslim Association UK is proud to work with Humanity First and the International Association of Ahmadi Architects and Engineers to improve the lives of millions of people across the continent of Africa, improving health, education, and food security for millions. Under the guidance of the Khalifa, His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, may God be his helper, model villages are being constructed across Africa. The concept is to use improved construction techniques and solar power to provide more sustainable housing, communal facilities such as halls, training centers and mosques, lighting, safe access to water and sanitation, and improved crop management. Many such villages have already been built. Too many people lack access to safe drinking water. Through the Water for Life program, thousands of village water hand pumps have been deployed and refurbished to provide local access to drinking water in Africa to over 3 million people. The community has built and runs over 800 schools, and now we are improving the classrooms, building libraries and science laboratories, installing toilet blocks, and providing access to computers. Dozens of mosques have been built in Africa as part of our commitment to its spiritual welfare, providing communities not only with places of worship, but also community centers to facilitate cohesion and promote goodwill. In farming villages, we are deploying machines to process cassava, maize, couscous, and rice to generate high-value products and save time and effort for women. Dozens of hospitals and clinics across the region provide access to quality care at low costs. Medical camps provide access to doctors in remote regions. Over 60,000 students have been trained to certificate and diploma levels at 25 vocational training centers across Africa, covering IT, tailoring, languages, and engineering trades. We have 2 mobile eye surgery units in West Africa providing free cataract surgery. Our teams also provide low-cost prescription glasses. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community is spearheading initiatives to provide improved health, food security, and training. The net effect is to take millions in Africa out of poverty. The Pan-African Ahmadiyya Muslim Association's partnership with Humanity First and IAAE allows it to project its vision and commitment to the religion of Islam, the welfare of humanity, and the cause of Africa.
Thank you for watching that brief video. We now move on to the brief remarks by our guest speakers. And I know in platforms like this, our guest speakers have got a lot to share with us, but due to time factor, I would humbly request they try to stay within the time that is allotted to them. Our first speaker is Lord Tariq Ahmed of Wimbledon. Lord Tariq Ahmed is a distinguished member of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, currently serving in Her Majesty's government as Secretary of State at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and as a Prime Minister's Special Representative on Preventing Sexual Violence in Conflict. Previously, Lord Ahmed has served as Minister for Aviation and Trade, Minister for Counter-Extremism at the Home Office, and Communities Minister. He also served as the National Vice President Chairman of the Conservative Party. I now have the pleasure of inviting Lord Ahmed to share his brief remarks with us.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. Your Highnesses, National President, President of PAAMA, respected Lords, ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed a great honor for me to remark briefly at this august occasion. I must, in my introduction, though, announce a correction. There may be some who may be somewhat perplexed that there has been a change again of a Secretary of State. I assure you, whilst I am charmed by the promotion in my introduction. I serve as Minister of State at the Foreign Office, and I assure you Jeremy Hunt is very much safe and present as Secretary of State, and long may he continue to do so. It's an immense pleasure to be here again to join this incredible event, the significance of which His Holiness, in his words that the National President just read out, demonstrates the importance of peace and unity. And I can assure you that as a minister within the British Foreign Office, who has responsibility, amongst other areas, for the United Nations and Commonwealth, it is not lost on me on the importance of building peace. Indeed, if one reflects on the history of the world over recent years, we heard His Holiness in his message mention the conflicts around the world, in Yemen, in Syria, in Burma. It becomes incumbent on all of us to join together, to unite in our efforts for peace. No matter who you are, where you are, which country you represent, what community you come from, the importance of standing together, united, against those who seek to divide us is perhaps arguably more important than now in the modern world than it has been since the Second World War. Very briefly, if I may, I just also, in congratulating the President of the Pan-African Association for hosting this event, the significance is also twofold. It is 70 years since the Universal Charter of Human Rights of the United Nations, and also, poignantly, today also marks the International Day for Freedom of Religion or Belief. I was in the summer also appointed to the additional responsibility as the Prime Minister's envoy in this important area, and I'm sure all of us have reflected on events across the world, and indeed today, as we were coming to this event, we heard again tragically of events unfolding in the United States, in Pittsburgh, where a Jewish synagogue has come under attack with worshippers being targeted. It is therefore important that we unite, we stand together as a united voice against those who seek to divide us. And His Holiness, in his message that he has taken around the world, has resonated in every parliament, including that of my own, that where there is division, he brings unity. Where there is hate, he spreads the language of love. And if I go back to that universal charter, we go back to the time of early Islam, the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. There was something known as the Medina Charter, which I'm sure is known to many here. That was a charter of human rights. That was a charter of the Prophet of Islam that ensured and enshrined the religious rights and obligations of each and every member of every religious community. Fast forward to 2018, it becomes important that we reflect on our history, that religion is there to unite us, not to divide us. And I end in the words of His Holiness, in his message, which we heard again today, which were the words which were first uttered by that of the Holy Prophet of Islam, and prophets before him, and indeed the promised Messiah, the founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Messages of love, messages of humanity. Indeed, His Holiness reminded us just now of the pursuit of justice, the pursuit of peace. It was the Holy Prophet of Islam who was sent as the mercy of mankind. And we, members of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, resonate very strongly with that message, because the renaissance of Islam, the revival of Islam, which came through the personage of the promised Messiah, the founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, he very poignantly reminded all of us about the service to mankind, the service to humanity. For as he quoted himself, I believe that charity, service to humanity, and my love for humanity is that like a mother to her child. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, it's an honor to be here at such an august occasion, and I look forward to other messages of peace as well. But never have there been more important times to hold important events like this, and never has it been more important to ensure that we see the leadership and the future which we're currently seeing through the bright future of the continent of Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I've seen a few times that some of our guests try to clap and then they stop. Please feel free, whenever you think you want to applaud anyone, relax yourself and please feel free to do that. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Her Royal Highness Na Chocho Soyo I. Na Chocho Soyo I is a multi-award-winning queen from Jamestown in Greater Accra region of Ghana. She has been invited globally to speak at major global platforms in the United Kingdom and abroad, including Howard University and Pace Girls Network in the United States of America, on social and cultural topics, often generating debate and challenging attitudes. Na Chocho Soyo I, apologies for that, is a key leader of the global African community, holding positions with some of the strategic organizations, pushing the agenda for change across the continent of Africa. And I call on Her Royal Highness to address us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Mr. Chairman of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission in the UK and the President of PAAMA, invited dignitaries, Your Royal Highnesses, thank you very much for inviting me yet again to join you in celebration of peace. I am always touched by the level of respect, acceptance, and love shown when I arrive in this beautiful setting to join you. In the true spirit of your motto, love for all and hatred for none. In doing the work and carrying out the vision of peace across Africa, I would like to first of all bring you fraternal greetings from the traditional authority who are very much behind me in the global move to join the diaspora in unity. My work has involved social issues which I believe that if tackled would enhance our level of living wherever we are as Africans. Only yesterday I was speaking to a group of young people and the community on the issue of knife and gun violence on our streets. And that forum, I heard stories that were harrowing and humbling to me as an individual, as a mother, and as a traditional ruler. Not long ago, I'm happy to see Lord Ahmad here. Not long ago, I was in his office in another capacity discussing how the Commonwealth can help enhance the lives of Ghanaians in the UK as well as what we can do back home. And in that capacity also, I have recently taken on the mantle of bringing awareness about modern slavery. The idea that slavery ended many years ago, and yet there are people, especially of African descent, still subjected to atrocious treatment across the world in pursuit of dignity in earning an honest living. And I wouldn't take too much of your time, but as we celebrate peace, I'd like you to reflect on that and join me in my fight to help eliminate this evil cancer that is modern slavery. In your businesses, in your communities, when you see something that does not seem right, when you see someone that may be subjected to slavery against their will, ladies and gentlemen, I implore you to speak out. And in doing so, perhaps we as a community will grow stronger. Thank you so much for inviting me. Enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Royal Highness Na Chocho Soyo I. And I move on to our next speaker, His Excellency Julius Peter Moto. His Excellency Julius Peter Moto is the High Commissioner of Republic of Uganda to the United Kingdom. His Excellency has over 25 years experience in advocacy, governance, community mobilization, and development-based NGOs and INGOs. His Excellency previously served as the Ugandan High Commissioner to South Africa and head of mission with duties covering Namibia, Botswana, and the Royal Kingdoms of Lesotho and Swaziland. I now invite His Excellency Julius Peter-Moto to share his brief remarks with us. Thank you.
Rafiq Hamid Hayat, National President for Ahmadiyya Muslim Association UK, Tommy Cullen, President of PAAMA UK, Lord Tariq Ahmed, UK Secretary of State for Commonwealth, Karim Khan, Assistant Secretary General for the United Nations, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I thank Tommy Cullen, President of Pan-Africa Ahmadiyya Muslim Association UK, for inviting me again. Last year I was here to make a short address to this year's event with the theme Peace and Brotherhood, the keys to a progressive future. Uganda is happy to associate with Ahmadiyya Muslim Association because of great services that the association is rendering to our people in Uganda in terms of boreholes, schools and mosques. In the same vein, we thank the UK government and all other development partners that have stood with Uganda for all this time to date in Uganda's recovery efforts, and mostly their support to over 1.4 million refugees that we have received and we are hosting in Uganda from neighboring countries, notably South Sudan. The future of these refugees depends on love for all and hate for none. Back to the theme for tonight. There are two opposing forces at play. There's the world peace and world problems. The question any leader should ask is whether world peace is possible to attain for a progressive future. To put it into context, would there be a progressive future if there is peace in the world? How do we attain peace? Can peace be sustained through wars? You may say yes. You may also say no. Over the years, we have seen from World War I and World War II to date that more money, resources and manpower is allocated by nations to create world peace. The more this is done, the more world problems and conflicts and sufferings are recorded in our history. The reverse can be true to guarantee a progressive future. We need to allocate more money, more resources, more manpower to solve world problems such as global warming, natural disasters, socio-economic deprivation, world health, endangered species of flora and fauna, environment pollution, drug trafficking, poverty, oppression of women, and economic crisis. I give an example. In 2015, when a deadly disease struck Liberia, Uganda was the first country in Africa to send medical workers, and we lost one doctor there. I think during that tragedy, over 3,000 people died in Liberia. In Sierra Leone, not Liberia. I'm sorry about that, in Sierra Leone. I think this is the kind of solutions we want for addressing world problems. When refugees came to Uganda in hundreds of millions, in millions, many friendly countries, UK, EU, they came to our help, and Uganda gave land to refugees. So these are kind of solutions to world problems: love for all and hate for none. I thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Your Excellency Julius Motu, for that wonderful, short but important remarks. As the MC for this particular evening's event, I'm going to, because my guest speakers have been very good, I would want to add one more speaker, a very good friend of us, Dr. Labelle, to say some few remarks. Thank you.
Good evening, dignitaries on the high table. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, my name is Dr. Labelle, and I'm a community activist, and I'm based in Manchester. A lot of my work is around peace and conflict resolution, and a lot of the work in particular is around with our young people and ending the gun and gang crime and now knife crime that we have on our streets. In Manchester, with our group, we did manage to reduce gun crime by 92%. So there is a formula that can be used. So I hear, my sisters praying when you talk of the knife crime with our young people. It is very important that if we want peace on our streets, if we want peace in our neighborhoods, in our countries, one of the things we have to do, and we have to really be seen doing it, is creating community engagement, but not just use it as a slogan, actually do it in reality. And in order to gain community engagement, it is about, stepping outside of our comfort zones and actually engaging with, working with, talking to people that are actually different from ourselves. That is how we create peace within our communities, stepping outside of our comfort zones and engaging with people that not only look different from us, but sound different, dress differently, and ask those difficult questions. And on the other hand, be prepared to answer the difficult questions. Because when we're able to do that, we gain understanding as to why people are different from us, why they look differently, why they sound differently, or eat different foods. And it's from that understanding that we actually gain, we gain comfort and comfortability in being around each other. So if we want to create peace, remember that we need community engagement, but we shouldn't use it just as a slogan. We have to do it in reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Labelle. And I'll move on to our next guest speaker, Dr. Karim Mara. Dr. Karim Mara has served in various key positions in Sierra Leone as Minister of Finance and Economic Development, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Governor of the Bank of Sierra Leone, and the Chief of Staff to the President. He was an advisor on the public expenditure management at the Commonwealth Secretariat in London and provided technical assistance at the New York State Senate. He has worked with multilateral financial institutions and development agencies such as the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and the African Development Bank. Dr. Mara is a former head boy of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Secondary School, Freetown, and was named New Generation Leader for Africa by South Africa-based African Leadership Network in 2012. And I'll have the honor of inviting Dr. Mara to share his thoughts with us.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Excellencies, global peace activists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is indeed a great pleasure to be invited to speak at this globally acclaimed Africa Peace Symposium 2018 on the theme Peace, Brotherhood, Keys to a Progressive Future. As has been said, I am a product of the Ahmadiyya mission of Sierra Leone. Along with many of my compatriots, I'm very much proud to have been part of its brilliant heritage. Its ideals of nurturing those in need of help in impoverished communities, its trust in shaping the future of deprived inhabitants of the globe through education, its unique mission to preach and influence peace in far-flung corners of the globe, and its ability to create a truly Islamic ambience of peace are some of the values that define the Ahmadiyya Muslim community as unique. No doubt, therefore, that the Ahmadiyya mission in Sierra Leone received a prestigious Presidential Gold Medal Award in 2013 in recognition of its outstanding contributions to the nation in the fields of health, education, agriculture, peace, and humanitarian activities. Records have it that the first Ahmadiyya missionary arrived in Sierra Leone in 1921. Over the years, its membership has grown to more than 500,000, with 1,000 places of worship or mosques established across the country. It really is laudable. The mission has so far established 212 and 64 primary and secondary schools respectively, and a missionary training college in the city of Bo. As we have just seen in the brief video presentation, through the Humanity First initiative, the mission provides facilities such as water and free medical camp, just to name few, and has established 5 model villages through its International Association of Ahmadi Architects and Engineers. Above all, a good number of leaders in several respects, including my humble self, are product of the mission. You know, people have asked a question from the human, peace, and religious perspective. What has been the experience of Sierra Leone? And I think this provides a good foundation, a good platform to speak to that. And I have this to say. The country is a fragile and post-conflict economy and has experienced a number of challenges over the years, notably the 10-year civil conflict. It is sad that barely a decade after the conflict, the country was struck again by many unfortunate episodes. There was an outbreak of cholera in 2011. This was followed in 2014 by a public health emergency, which was the outbreak of the deadly Ebola virus disease, claiming more than 3,000 lives and impoverishing our communities. During the same period, I must emphasize, the global price of primary commodities such as iron ore fell drastically, which had an adverse impact on exports. And the situation got worse as 2 of the major mining companies also closed down their operations. This took our economy off track, and as a result, growth dropped from a positive 17% to minus 21%, with a corresponding rise in inflation from 7.4 to 12%. In 2015, floods destroyed homes and properties in the capital, Freetown, and many areas in the country. This, however, placed burden not only on the communities, but on government. And in 2017 again, there was a devastating mudslide, including floods, that left thousands dead and several more homeless. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I decided to take you down this sad memory lane to underscore that we must continue to have faith in the human race, to believe in the tenacity of man to prevail, and to believe in the ultimate design of God, that regardless of adversities, humanity wins and has always won. Our country did not bounce back on account of our resilience or the strength of our leaderships or policies. Its recovery was made possible as friends and partner institutions of varying dimensions complemented our efforts. Amongst them, the Ahmadiyya mission, and I must here say that my very good friend from Uganda just made mention of a particular episode. So we had friends from all over the world that came to help us surmount the challenge. In view of the foregoing, ladies and gentlemen, there are many lessons we can draw from the Sierra Leone experience. For those of us in search of our true selves, we'll find reasons in tolerance, as Sierra Leone fought its civil war without recourse to ethnic cleansing. For those of us in search of inclusivity, we'll find bright examples in Sierra Leone, as the country is known to be among the top religious tolerant countries in the world. And for those of us seeking to unravel how dynamic the human spirit can yearn for peace, love, and brotherhood, we will marvel at how post-conflict Sierra Leone has had 2 peaceful and successful transitions of government in 2007 and 2018. Greater still, its military forces and police are providing peacekeeping services in other countries on the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to speak to a global issue that has to do with peace, and I'll close by sharing my vision with you. You know, when I was chair of the G7+, which is an association of 20 fragile and post-conflict states, as well as co-chair of the International Dialogue on Peacekeeping and Peace Building and State Building, we collaborated with several stakeholders, among them the United Nations, for the adoption of Goal 16 of the Sustainable Development Goals, which, as you may know, aims to promote peaceful and inclusive societies by 2030. I would like you to kindly permit me to use this occasion to appeal to leaders of the world, especially those in fragile states, to continue to uphold and nurture, as well as ensure that the principles of inclusivity, democracy, and human rights are maintained and improved upon, so as to achieve sustainable development. This is important because fragility can be self-reinforcing. In conclusion, our children are the future. And so we must, by deliberate design, employ their talents as key to a progressive future. In view of this, allow me to share this vision with you, that a few years down the road, a global network of young leaders will rise up to spread the ideas of peace and love under the auspices of the Ahmadiyya mission. To achieve this, the mission will wish to embark on the recruitment of a new generation of peace ambassadors, each year from their secondary schools, and this should be across the world, to champion the cause of peace and humanity. I can see these young ambassadors in their millions later in life, taking with them into their professions and leaderships the ideals of one humanity, love for all and hatred for none. You know, a peaceful human race of the future can only be guaranteed today by sowing the seed of peace in our children and challenging them to champion it now. Because now is the time to recruit these ambassadors. Now is the time to create a global network of young champions of peace. Hence, I would strongly recommend that Africa is considered as a pilot continent for the recruitment of these young ambassadors. You know, if I had been a peace ambassador years ago when I was head boy of Ahmadiyya Secondary School, today I will be taking the peace message across the world. By 2030, I strongly do believe that the Ahmadiyya mission will have something to show the rest of the world, how it was able to recruit millions of young people across the world to take forward the values of peace and love for humanity. I thank you all for your attention. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Keifala Mara. Our next speaker is our keynote speaker, Mr. Karim A.A. Khan QC. Mr. Karim A. Khan QC is an Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations. He was called to the Bar of England and Wales in 1992 and later obtained a doctorate in law from Oxford University. He is a founding director of Peace and Justice Initiative and the Global Victims Initiative, and is a former president of the International Criminal Court Bar Association. Mr. Karim Khan has a long-standing relationship with Africa, having acted as lead defense counsel for states and individuals alike in numerous high-profile cases before the United Nations International Criminal Tribunals and the International Criminal Court, including Charles Taylor, the former president of Liberia, William Ruto, deputy president of Republic of Kenya, and Saif al-Islam Gaddafi of Liberia. Karim Khan has served as a visiting of Libya, my apologies. Karim Khan has served as a visiting professor of international law and human rights at the University of Sierra Leone and has taught extensively at universities across the world, including China, Bosnia, Italy, and the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom and the United States of America. He has been recognized as a worldwide ambassador of Africa Bar Association. He is a recipient of multiple awards and has published numerous books and academic papers. Karim Khan is an eminent member of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, and it's with great pleasure that I invite to deliver the keynote speech Mr. Karim Khan.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Respected Amir Sahib, missionary in charge, Atamajib Rashid, Your Majesties, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, honored and respected guests, and first and foremost, brothers and sisters, because when we take away titles and privilege and positions, that's what we are. We walk shoulder to shoulder as God's creation on this earth. It is an immense pleasure and privilege, and I thank sincerely the President of the Pan-African Ahmadiyya Muslim Association, Tommy Carlon, for the invitation. I am humbled. I'm humbled and really touched. As was mentioned in the introduction, I have had the distinct honor of working in Africa and living in Africa for many years. I've worked in North Africa, from Tunisia and Libya, West Africa, East Africa, and the Central African Republic and the central areas, the Great Lakes region. But the truth is, long before I had the opportunity to set foot in Africa, I had embraced Africa. And it is this community that gave me that opportunity. I can never remember the loving smile and huge presence of paramount missionary Abdul Wahab Adam Sahib, who we saw on the earlier presentation, whose heart for God and his heart for humanity was as large as the wonderful continent of Africa. And we see today in this very forum a wonderful diversity that, along with Africans that have come here for their association meeting, we have individuals from all races, from all regions, and indeed all religions. I think that is something exceptionally special. And as a child, I remember hearing of Africa Now, some youngsters don't remember it, but just a few years ago, it's hard to believe, there was no internet. And I remember sitting on the mosque floor in some mosque, I think it was in Huddersfield, and there was a summary of a speech by the third Khalifa, who had visited Africa in a tremendous tour. And the love and the teaching that he promoted then was of course replicated, and I saw that with my own eyes, in the presence of the fourth Khalifa, Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad. And you could see physically the way he would embrace children from Africa, but children from all races and all religions. There was nothing affected. It was absolutely a spring of love that had no end. And we've seen the same thing with the present Khalifa, and we've seen even on the video today, witness how he embraced and he physically loved people from all corners of the earth, including from the continent of Africa. And of course, in his presence, that was reinforced by his proven service to Africa for years. Nobody could say it better. In those years, he never sought to leave the continent at a time when Africa was much less developed than it is today, because the service of humanity required the service of all God's creatures, including humanity. But, respected brothers and sisters, it had to be thus, because these Khalifas are servants of the Holy Prophet of Islam, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so before I set foot in Africa, I had heard my father tell me stories about Hazrat Bilal and the love of the Holy Prophet for him. And who can forget now when people are talking about immigration, who can forget for a moment the special role that Africa had in the early history of Islam, when Muslims were being persecuted terribly. They were saying, Ahad, Ahad, for that crime of believing in the unity of God. They were tortured in the midday sun. And where did they seek refuge first? Not Medina. The first refuge was to go to Abyssinia. So that link between Africa is one of glory. It is one of profound respect, and indeed a debt that I think we owe to the continent. As has been mentioned in the introductions, in July of this year, I was appointed the special advisor and head of the investigative team to promote accountability for Daesh, for ISIL. And what compelled me to leave the comfort of my private practice and enter service of the United Nations was the evil that ISIL represents. The tentacles spread from Pakistan and Afghanistan, Southeast Asia, we see it in the Philippines, Tajikistan, of course into Iraq and Syria, up into Africa, Libya. The Sahel region has a real problem also with Daesh returning fighters there and trying to set up their pernicious and evil philosophy. So even before I was appointed, I felt it incumbent upon me to speak about Islam from a legal perspective as the antithesis of violence, as the absolute opposite of intolerance, and that this outfit, this gang of thugs, this rabidly disordered, diseased, contorted philosophy of ISIL is nothing less than the un-Islamic state. And from a religious perspective, we recall, of course, the words of the Holy Quran, Wal Asri, Idal Insan Lafi Khusrin, in which there was a warning, bear to witness the time when mankind was in a state of abject loss. We've heard reference to the importance of hope. But nobody can say other than at this particular moment in time, the body of humanity is groaning in pains and in suffering that is being inflicted in so many different ways, shapes and forms. So in this venue and on this day, I think it's important to recall not only what is obvious, that the actions of violence that we've seen in so many parts of the world are as different and opposite to Islam as night and day, but to recall what I believe to be a fundamentally important fact. Islam is 610 years younger than Christianity. And if one goes back not even 600 years, goes back 400 years, one would see the terrible, awful, anti-Semitic, racist burning of Jews during the Black Death in Europe. You would see the burning of heretics at the stake, Queen Elizabeth and then Queen Mary, Protestant and Catholic alike, had their skin burnt in the scorching heat of the pyre. We would see, of course, the genocide of Muslim and Jew in the Spanish Inquisition. And not even 400 years ago, 200 years ago, look at the genocide, or 300 years ago, the genocide of Native Americans that was ongoing, or how Aborigines were hunted, one day hunting kangaroos and the next day hunting Aborigines. And in the 1960s, a blink away, we saw the lynching of black Americans who had been brought as slaves, with the burning cross in the background, with the hooded cowards of the Ku Klux Klan. A message from a messenger that we love and that we revere, whose message was love, who said, if you're slapped, turn the other cheek, who proclaimed with resonance, love thy neighbor like thyself. That message was perverted in the 1960s in the same way that Islam, the beautiful message of Islam, is being perverted by those that call themselves Muslims. So in this context, what are we to do? We should be humble. It's a strange word to say, but we should be humble and to be patient, because without that there's no chance of peace. We should be students of history and the changing tides of civilization, the highs and the lows. And in Islam, we are also taught by our Prophet that wisdom is the lost property of every Muslim. Wherever you see it, seize it, catch it, hold it, and keep it as your own. This word is known by so many children, but it is so deep, because it is linked also to the respect and the belief we have as to the truth of the prophets, whether they are Moses or Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, or Prophet Buddha or Prophet Krishna. All prophets, including prophets that definitely 100% blessed the soil of the continent of Africa. This egalitarian spirit is in very short supply today. Very often we reject a message because of who is the messenger. We are seduced by celebrity. We go wide-eyed at billionaires and individuals who appear on televisions. And when they say something, if they are rich, if they are powerful, we tend to listen. And if that message comes from somebody who appears humble, who appears weak, we dismiss it as nonsense. This is not a new phenomenon. This is part of human nature. Understanding these truths is essential for there to be any chance of peace and brotherhood in the world. It was that malady, principally, that led to Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, being rejected. There was no golden throne and empire. There was a humble person who came on a donkey. And he was rejected as, this can't be important. This can't be an important message. And it is actually this very same arrogance that we all have. The arrogance that is within us, that if we don't submit, if we don't subdue it, that we see in the founder, that we see gave rise to the massive opposition to the founder of this community, a small dusty village in India. So I think this truth is very important. For there to be peace, one needs to search out the truth. One needs to search out wisdom and accept it regardless of the source. And one should not go to TV channels or read newspapers for validation. We see it in so many parts of the world, the obvious channels we see. You flick on one channel and the other, and you see it's people watch according to their preset beliefs, not because they are inquiring minds and they're using their God-given brain to critically analyze the merits of different positions. It's the cult of celebrity, not the cult of truth. And this phenomena has been seen in the judicial sphere as well. Not now, back in the ages. It was no less a playwright than William Shakespeare that said, "Plate sin with gold, and the strong lance of justice hurtless breaks. Arm it with rags, and a pygmy straw doth pierce it." This idea that if you are powerful, if you are rich, if you are somebody, you are immune from the rigors of the law. If you are a rich financier, different standards apply. And yet if you are poor, if you are in some parts of the world, particularly we see it in terms of statistics, if you are black, that the legal system disproportionately targets those individuals. This feeling of inequality that has a basis, in fact, is one of the fundamental reasons why there is so much disharmony in so many parts of the world. Spin can take us so far, but these fundamental truths are not lost on individuals, and one does not need to have a doctorate or be a scientist, a rocket scientist, to understand these. These are understood by refugees, by the poorest, or those that have not had the benefit of an education. So, without justice, there is no chance at all of peace. And the fourth Khalifa, Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad, stated in his speech at the Queen Elizabeth Conference Centre, and it's there in his book, Islam's Response to Contemporary Issues, that peace is the child of justice. And this causal link between peace and justice is something that is an axiom. It simply cannot be denied. But the challenge is to take it from a ritual incantation we hear in halls and conferences around the world into something that has particular meaning. And when I was on the plane coming over here, I had the chance to read again the collection of speeches by the present Khalifa of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, World Crisis and Pathways to Peace. And it's available on the Ahmadiyya website as a download. And really, when I read that, I thought, what on earth could I say? Because actually, in those collection of speeches, those Friday sermons, and in those letters to religious leaders and secular heads of state and heads of government, there is clear truth as to the situation of the world and the requirement of the hour if one really wishes to move towards peace and brotherhood. So, at the international level, the whole fabric, the whole architecture of international justice, in fact, of international relations, is built upon what should be a rules-based order. We have conventions and we have declarations, we have international law that should be the underpinnings of comity of nations. And not only as a lawyer, my objective assessment is the legal framework we have today is far better, it's far more enhanced, it's far more refined than it was 30, 40 or 50 years ago. But one thing is undeniable, that it is not applied equally. We do not have absolute justice. And this is not a clarion call from heads of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community to talk about absolute justice as a prerequisite for peace. It actually erodes the very fabric of international relations. We see, for example, at the International Criminal Court, that there is murmurings, in fact more than murmurings. There was even hostility and a vibrant dialogue about the fairness of the court that was focusing principally upon African states. Now the reality is this: wherever crimes take place, including in the continent of Africa, individuals should be subject to the law. There was a saying in English history, English jurisprudence, the king is under no man but God and the law. So this idea of all of us being subject to the law is a paradigm principle. But of course it grates when people see one yardstick being used for the weak and another yardstick being used for the powerful. It is that disparity of treatment which gives rise to a significant amount of debate and ultimately brings the international legal order into disrepute. So, how do we move from international treaties and words, utterances, packaged differently, to a world in which peace and brotherhood have some substance, that they are real, not just ideals? As a teenager, I had the blessing to sit during many Majlis Irfan, their question-answer sessions that the Khalifa of the time gives. And I remember that in this question-answer session, the fourth Khalifa said something that made a massive impact upon me. Not speaking in theological terms, complicated theories, abstract concepts. Very simply, he said this: you cannot love an artist and hate his art. You cannot love a musician and hate his music. You cannot love God and hate his creation. Kindness and love is the beginning of piety. It is the beginning of goodness. It is the beginning of decency. Without it, book knowledge renders the individual like the proverbial donkey, overladen with dusty books, without any insight. That human condition of kindness is something that unites all humanity, regardless of faith and regardless of religion. And it is something that is repeatedly emphasized, not only by the Khalifas of the time in the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, or by the promised Messiah, but by the Holy Prophet of Islam himself. I want to read one quotation I wrote down, and I think it's quite important at this moment in time. We heard by Lord Tariq the awful, heartbreaking news of an attack on a place of worship, our brothers and sisters in the United States at a synagogue. And I think it's important when we go to any mosque and when we think about the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, we recall that so many of our brothers and sisters have been killed, have been tortured, have been imprisoned. They have been humiliated in the eyes of their society. And because of the edict of the Khalifas of the time and the promised Messiah, they show patience and they show forbearance. They tolerated. And I recall my late father's, one of his favorite sayings is, "O eagle, do not rail against the wind, do not complain against the wind. It is not there to push you down, it is there to make you rise even higher." And when one sees the progress of this community in every area, including we saw the beautiful video of the Pan-African Ahmadiyya Association, its activities in Africa, and in every walk of life, when we see individuals like Lord Ahmed and other dignitaries here, we see this. But that is a choice we have a right to make, because we are the ones suffering. But we do not have a choice to be passive spectators to evil. We do not have a choice to sit on our chairs in comfort while our brothers and our sisters are in poverty or are tortured. Not only do we have a civil responsibility, not only do we have a religious responsibility, but in this community we were admonished in the clearest terms by the promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, peace be upon him. And he said this in Aina Kalamati Islam at page 559. If a Muslim sees that a fire has broken out in the house of his Hindu neighbor and he does not get up and help in putting it out, I tell you truly, he is not from me. If one of my followers sees a Christian being attacked and does not get up to lend assistance, to rescue him, I tell you truly, he is not of me. This fundamental distinction about soaking up pain for yourself and it not translating into an obligation, an affirmative obligation as an article of faith to help individual regardless of their creed, regardless of the label that they have, whether it is Jew or Hindu or Sikh or Christian or non-believer, but by dint of them being creations of God. That fundamental truth is one of the essential prerequisites for peace to be possible. And as the Holy Prophet of Islam put it, so simply and yet so wisely, that when you see evil, stop it with your hand. And if you cannot stop it with your hand, speak out against injustice wherever you see it. And if for any reason you cannot, at least condemn it in your heart. It was Virgil that said, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And we need to be vigilant as to our responsibilities, not only to blame the fault elsewhere, the fault at the macro level, the faults of heads of state, the faults of governments. Again, Shakespeare said, the fault is not in our stars, but in ourselves that we are underlings. Each of us has the power of choice. Each of us has the responsibility to act. And without that action, without that sense that each individual can make a difference, without that belief penetrating the heart that yes, I am my brother's keeper and I will look after my brother or my sister if they're in difficulties, peace will not be possible. I had a lot more to cover. I think we started a bit late, so I think maybe 5 or 10 minutes, is that right? So I'm told by the President. I want to move on because I know also we're getting close to the time for meals. But one of the areas in this time of crisis, and when we see the version of Islam that is being presented, both the contorted actions of people that call themselves Muslims, and then of course the political opportunism of those individuals that wish to run with it and make hay with that unfortunate situation. There's many things one can talk about. Lord Tariq, I think it was, that talked about the Pact of Medina. One aspect that I think is not mentioned enough is also the covenant of the Holy Prophet of Islam to the monastery at St. Catherine. And I will read that. It was in 628 CE. And it states this, and I quote, "This is a message from Muhammad, son of Abdullah, as a covenant to those who adopt Christianity near and far, for we are with them. Verily I, the servants, my followers, defend them, because Christians are my citizens. No compulsion is to be on them. Neither are their judges to be removed from their jobs, nor their monks from their monasteries. No one is to destroy a house of their religion, to damage it, or to carry anything from it to Muslim houses. Should anyone do this, they will break God's covenant and disobey his prophet. Verily they are my allies and have my secure charter against all that they hate. No one is to force them to travel or fight. The Muslims are to fight for them. If a female Christian is married to a Muslim, it is not to take place without her approval. She is not to be prevented from visiting her church to pray. Their churches are to be respected. No Muslim is to disobey this covenant until the last day." Who can forget the last sermon of the Holy Prophet? Arab is not better than non-Arab. White is not better to black or black to white, except based upon righteousness. An egalitarian principle 1,400 years ago. Imagine the crimes, slavery that have been mentioned, that go on today. And the Prophet of Islam is said, people are equal like the tooths of a comb. This charter that is the last sermon that the Prophet of Islam said should be repeated continuously to people even later on until the Day of Judgment, because they may benefit from it more than even people at that time, is something that bears very close reflection. I have to move on. We've talked about brotherhood, and the Holy Prophet of Islam also said, "None of you believes until he wishes for his brother what he wishes for himself." So, why is it that peace and brotherhood constitute the keys to a progressive society, as the question posed suggests? And it was an intimidating question that was posed, not only in its subject matter, but because it was the question that was given to this occasion by Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, May God support him. Well, it's not only a religious and spiritual admonition that unite great religions, that there should be peace and there should be brotherhood. It's not only to avoid human suffering. It's not only to avoid pain. The genocides that we've seen scar the body of humanity. The violent rapes we've seen far too commonly, whether they're in the Middle East or Africa or Europe or Asia. But it also has another cost. It actually even has a financial cost. So one thinks sometimes, well, politicians and leaders may not be convinced with the moral arguments. But I read a very interesting report called Costs of War by the Watson Institute of International Public Affairs. It's part of Brown University. Brown University is one of the top universities in the United States. And they calculated that in post 9/11 until 2018, $5.6 trillion was spent by the United States alone on armed interventions. So that's $5.6 trillion in that period, 7-year period, on armed interventions. And leaving aside statistics, I have many of them, of those dead and those injured and those millions that are displaced. What was interesting is another report by Professor Garrett Peltier from the University of Massachusetts in May 2017. And she presents an economic argument, the opportunity cost of war. Because whilst domestically in the United States, there is an economic advantage of militarization, because you can spread amongst the states various military expenditure and rearmament. They calculated that education and healthcare expenditure created twice as many jobs and progress than spending the same amount on armaments, whilst clean energy and infrastructure created 40% more jobs than the same amount for military expenditure. But why is this relevant to Africa? It's relevant for many reasons, but one of them is this: at least the United States and those countries that have military capacity, that exporters, that export equipment, their economies are enhanced. Whether it could be better enhanced or not, they are enhanced by building up weapons and selling it. But there is a worrying tendency that we've seen in the world, including upon our beloved continent of Africa, which should ring the alarm bells. In Angola, in 2013, military expenditure went up to 6 billion. In Algeria, 10 billion. Even our very dear Ghana spent 129% more on armaments in 2013 than 2012. If one looks at Jane's Intelligence Weekly and other publications, you will see Chad has Sukhoi jets, Côte d'Ivoire has Mirage jets, South Africa has Gripen fighter bombers, at a time when that money could best be used for the development of the people of Africa. Capacity to defend oneself is important, but in this day and age we've seen economic power is the only route to real independence and autonomy. And with the timber, with the oil, with the rare earth, with all the minerals and elements and diamonds and gold, and mostly the people of Africa, that money one should be very cautious about spending it on rearming as opposed to development. So these are not what the Americans call kumbaya principles. They're not edicts and messages that should be confined to the pulpits of churches and synagogues and mosques. They're not esoteric views of political philosophers. They have economic and social implications. So peace and brotherhood are certainly keys to a progressive future. If by progressive we mean not just seeking out technology, but keeping society and the fabric of society together by repairing tears. So if we have the key, where is the lock? The lock are the hearts and minds of each of us. And we need to combine the key with the lock if we're going to have any hope, I suggest, of peace and brotherhood and a peaceful as well as progressive future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Keynote Speaker Karim A.A. Khan QC, for that very faith-inspiring speech there. I've seen the team who are meant to be serving us very busy at the back there, which means that we are gradually coming to the end of tonight's proceeding. But before we do that, we call the President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community, United Kingdom, Mr. Rafiq Ayat, to do the closing remarks for us.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Your Excellencies, Your Highnesses, most respected and eminent guests, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May peace and blessings of Allah be upon you. I'm not going to make a very long speech because already the time is time that we had some dinner tonight. So it is my privilege and honor to thank PAAMA Association for organizing this event. It is indeed, I think, a very important event, and this is the second year that we have met. And we have been able to bring together people from different backgrounds, different faiths, different races, all in one platform where we can try and share our views to see how we can achieve peace in this world. This evening, a number of speakers have mentioned love for all, hatred for none. So what is it and where does it come from? Basically, it was our third Caliph, Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmad, may Allah be pleased with him. He took the essence of what faith stands for and gave it words. And the words that he's given is love for all, hatred for none. And this is the essence of every faith. We believe that God has sent over 100,000 prophets to this earth. And each prophet has brought with him a message from God so that we can have a moral code for the people. And this moral code actually organizes the society in such a way so that we can have peace and harmony in this world. So why is it that if that is the case, at this moment in time, we do not have peace in society? The reason for that is that basically every faith has been corrupted. People have forgotten the true teachings of their faith. And when you move away from the true and pure teaching, that is when the society gets into trouble. And we believe that God had promised a reformer who would come and refresh these teachings for the people of this world. And we believe that the promised Messiah that was waited by all major faiths of this world came in India, and his name was Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. May peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. And his basic teaching is love for all, hatred for none. And basically, his aim was to bring people of all different faiths under one umbrella so that we could sit together and discuss in a civil way how we can achieve peace in this world. And this is the very thing that his successors, which we call Khalifas, they have been taking this message to every corner of the world. The present head of our movement, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, his name has been mentioned and you saw him in a video earlier, basically has become an ambassador for peace in this world. And he's gone from country to country. He's met politicians, he's met dignitaries, he's met world leaders with one message: we must try and achieve peace based on justice. Because if you don't have justice, you cannot have peace in this world. And today, we have got here together. There are a lot of very prominent leaders here. And His Holiness has again given us this message that we should work all together with one objective, that we want to bring about peace based on justice. And particularly, he's mentioned people of Africa, because there is hope that at this moment in time, Africa can lead us into a peaceful coexistence and become an example for the rest of the world to follow. We saw how one man could make a difference. Nelson Mandela showed how one man can influence a lot of people. The Holy Prophet of Islam, he was another person who was able to influence the whole of society. So you need people who work with justice and an open heart, and that is what is required in order for us to achieve peace in this world. Well, let us hope and pray that we are able to see in our lifetime, because one of our speakers this evening mentioned that we have to look at what legacy we're leaving for our children. And the legacy has to be that of peace. The legacy has to be, we have to remain positive in our views that we can achieve peace in this world. And it is through our relationship with our Creator, God the Almighty, because He has the control and He can do anything that He wants. And if we pray to Him and we supplicate to Him, then I believe that He can win the hearts of people around the world and bring peace on this earth. May we be able to see that in our lifetimes. God bless you. Thank you very much. As it is tradition that we end with silent prayer, and I would invite you all to please join me in silent prayer, please. Amen. Thank you. Enjoy your dinner.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We want to thank all of you for attending, and please, very humble request, we have the feedback forms on the tables, so whilst over food, over the dinner, if you can spare some few minutes, because we want to keep improving upon our activities. And for the special thanks go to MTA International and the Ahmadiyya Muslim Peace Conference Ghana social media team for streaming this event live to all the viewers around the world. Thank you very much.